Hello, welcome to China Economic Spotlight. China's economy, touted as the world's second largest, has faced significant challenges since the outbreak of the pandemic, with clear signs of recession. Currently, the debt crisis of China's local governments has sparked global concerns. Local governments are facing financial difficulties and many government officials are experiencing salary cuts and unemployment. Will the debt crisis of local Chinese governments lead to political instability? Let's first examine the severity of China's local government debt crisis. According to a survey conducted by Bloomberg in May 2023, 53 economists, monetary managers, and financial strategists regarded China's local government debt issue as the biggest financial risk in Asia this year. According to data from S&P Global Ratings, China's local government debt, including city investment bonds, exceeded $6.5 trillion by the end of 2022, approximately 46 trillion Chinese yuan. Goldman Sachs estimated the total debt, including government official borrowing and local government financing platforms, to be around 23 trillion which is approximately 156 trillion Chinese yuan. The balance of government debt is 126% of GDP, well above the international warning line of 60%. More than half of China's provinces have exceeded the warning line for debt. So how did Chinese local governments accumulate such massive debt? There are several reasons. First, in 1994, China implemented a tax-sharing system where the central government and local governments split tax revenues proportionally, with the central government taking 55% and local governments taking 45%. Local governments have a higher expenditure responsibility and struggle to balance their budgets. However, the significant increase in debt occurred in 2008 when China launched a massive infrastructure stimulus of 4 trillion Chinese yuan to boost the economy. The central government only provided a small portion of the funds, and local governments heavily relied on financing through city investment platforms. According to Goldman Sachs' estimation, from 2008 to 2022, local government debt in China soared 11.14 times in 14 years. Second, local government projects are often inefficient and corruption is widespread. In February 2023, it was reported that government officials in Shangqiu, Henan province invested over 170 billion Chinese yuan in building highways, airports, and aviation ports. However, the funds dried up and the projects were left unfinished. The highways and airports are deserted with no signs of people or planes. According to data from the Ministry of Agriculture, as of June 30th, 2019, the total debt of rural governments in China exceeded 900 billion Chinese yuan, largely incurred by village officials for rural revitalization projects. However, it is questionable how much of this debt was actually used for construction. In Beijing's Fentai district, Xinzhuang village, the village community director Shi Fenggang embezzled 580 million Chinese yuan in just 8 years. According to China's annual budget report for local governments in 2022, the spending on pandemic prevention exceeded 352 billion Chinese yuan, and various measures to stimulate the economy, such as tax reductions, fee reductions, tax refunds, and delayed payments, amounted to 4.2 trillion Chinese yuan. The reduced revenues and increased expenditures have caused a significant imbalance in local government finances, leading to increasing reliance on borrowing. The bankruptcy of local Chinese governments. Government bankruptcy refers to financial bankruptcy, not the bankruptcy of functions. Government bankruptcy is not a new phenomenon. The governments of Ubari City in Hokkaido, Japan, and Iceland have experienced bankruptcy. In 2013, the city of Detroit in the United States also declared bankruptcy. In the United States federal system, state governments have relatively independent financial and administrative powers. When a state government goes bankrupt, the U.S. Congress generally does not propose a plan to rescue a particular state through the central government or other states. According to the legislative spirit of U.S. bankruptcy laws, the bankruptcy of local governments usually results in severe cuts to government departments, but the general public is not economically affected by government bankruptcy. For example, after the bankruptcy of Orange County, the government laid off 2,000 civil servants, and the state government of New York reduced state institutions by 20%. How do local Chinese governments resolve the debt crisis? In summary, there are roughly 4 approaches. Failure to repay debts. Many local governments have defaulted on payments for infrastructure projects, causing significant hardships for the contractors, and the local authorities have become the #1 defaulters. Dependence on the central government for assistance. Although China's Minister of Finance, Liu Kun, proclaimed this year that each family should take care of its own children, the local governments are not convinced. The governments of Guizhou and Yunnan openly demanded money, and the central government, concerned about potential political instability at the local level, considered aiding. However, the central government itself is financially strained. Increasing taxes, reducing salaries, and layoffs. Property taxes that affect millions of families have been frequently discussed in recent years, but face resistance and concerns, resulting in delays in implementation. Many local government employees have experienced salary cuts or even layoffs, leading to discontent among public servants. Using various means to reduce public welfare expenditures and increase illegal income. For example, proposing delayed retirement. Some local governments, such as Wuhan and Dalian, openly deducted funds from employees' personal medical insurance accounts and misappropriated social security funds. The Kunming government directly instructed the misappropriation of special loans and social security funds from a city investment meeting. Local governments established rural management teams to forcibly seize farmers' property, created various fine projects to generate revenue, and mortgaged income rights of state-owned assets for cash. For instance, Guangxi Province's Nanning City Asset Management Committee used the valuation of a 25-year road toll revenue estimated at 7.2 billion Chinese yuan as collateral to obtain bank loans. The debt crisis of local Chinese governments has already triggered instability. Through the various means employed to address the debt crisis, local governments have touched the bottom line of people's livelihoods, leading to conflicts between officials and citizens and social unrest. Retiree protests occurred in several regions of China from January to February this year. Massive demonstrations broke out in Wuhan, where thousands of retirees protested government healthcare reforms, demanding the cancellation of reductions in medical insurance for the elderly. Videos of retiree protests in Dalian, Liaoning Province were also shared online. In Guangzhou, retirees gathered outside the government office protesting the reduction of funds in their personal medical insurance accounts. After China suddenly abandoned its zero-COVID policy earlier this year, the vast nucleic acid testing industry collapsed, leading to employees demanding unpaid wages from the government. Online videos showed hundreds of workers in Chongqing involved in wage disputes with a manufacturer of COVID-19 test kits, throwing objects at riot police officers. On January 9th, clashes between the police and hundreds of workers at a factory of Hangzhou Oetiker Biology resulted in the detention of dozens of individuals. Additionally, the surge in spending on stability maintenance reflects the turmoil in China. According to reports, China's spending on stability maintenance reached 1.3 trillion Chinese yuan in 2019, equivalent to 1,000 Chinese yuan per capita. Nikkei Asia Review reported in 2022 that China's spending on stability maintenance in 2020 reached $210 billion, surpassing defense spending by 7% and doubling within a decade. No wonder netizens joke that almost everyone on the mainland is an anti-government element, and the Chinese government treats the entire population as enemies. The people are continuously calling for change, and the demand for change is growing. In addition to the debt crisis of local governments, private debt and corporate debt are also in a severe crisis due to the significant decline in the real estate industry and overall economic downturn. Debt defaults have become a crisis that the Chinese government is unable to solve. Coupled with the international community's decoupling efforts and increasing containment, the debt crisis may evolve into a gray rhino that devours the CCP regime. That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed our China Economic Spotlight, please continue to follow us. Thank you, everyone.